Hello and welcome back to The Big Stage, brought to you by Betting Expert. My name's Joe Ryan. I'll be your host, and in this show we're going to be breaking down some top bets from the 10 Premier League games coming up this weekend. Now, as always, joining me is Rory Jennings and injury expert Ben Dinnery. Chaps, how are you getting on? Rory, I know you've been busy this week playing a lot of football.
I've got a severe dose of the DOMS. The delayed onset of muscle soreness is really kicking in. It's 48 hours since I played. But yeah, it was a brilliant cause. I was playing for Hashtag United, raising money for Movember. And I think I played for about 6 hours of the 24 and loved it. It was brilliant.
Great stuff. Well, Ben, I mean, you can maybe give us a bit more insight into DOMS and how much that could actually affect professionals, not so much Rory, but professionals with games coming up thick and fast.
Yeah, I mean, look, fatigue is a massive risk factor when it comes to injury incidents. So optimum recovery levels, 48 to 72 hours ideally. And yes, we've got a midweek set of fixtures coming up. And as we'll discuss further on in the show, we look at some of those players who are maybe at risk of missing out this week due to those issues in those upcoming games.
So, Rory, I think the advice for you is just to rest up for now. We're not going to stress you out too much on this week's show.
Okay, deal. It's on you then. It's on you. My recovery's on you by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. Now, Dan Jenkins can't join us this week, but I will be basically giving you his best bets from the games. And he did have a pretty decent run, but Ben Dinnery, you actually smashed it with regards to your picks and predictions from last week. You were the best of the pundits, so hopefully you can continue that form as well. But now we're going to get into our first feature game of the weekend, Chelsea against Man United. Now, the big talking point from last week was finally Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been fired. United lost that manager after losing 4-1 at Vicarage Road. Rory, I want to get your reaction first of all. I mean, what went wrong for United in that game and just Ole overall?
Well, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has probably been sackable for a really long time. I mean, that seemed to be the watershed moment for the Manchester United board. But why it was there and not a 2-0 humiliation when they couldn't get the ball off City in the Manchester derby, or the 5-0 when Liverpool trounced them, or go back a year when they conceded a goal against Istanbul Başakşehir without having a player in their own half. I don't quite know why it was then. I don't know what the difference was. But they've made the decision. I think it's the correct one. And I genuinely think the reason it happened is Harry Maguire. I think Harry Maguire getting sent off like that allowed the score to be 4-1. And the thrashing that occurred at Vicarage Road made it impossible. It made it just totally unsustainable for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to continue. So where it's going now, this caretaker and an interim manager for an interim manager, and then into potentially Pochettino, it looks like, I don't know, but it feels like it's in disarray, doesn't it?
Not looking good. I mean, well, Pochettino is the bookies' favourite to be the next manager. There are some rumours going on as well in that Zidane's talking to PSG. So Pochettino does look likely to be the next manager. But Ben, I mean, just want to get your thoughts here as well with United. I mean, what's going wrong? I mean, is it just down to Ole, or is it the players that have got to take a little bit more responsibility?
I think the players need to take a lot more responsibility as well. You're talking about players at the peak, or should be at the peak of their career. Ole will guide them. But ultimately, you're playing for Manchester United at Old Trafford in front of, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of supporters, adoring fans worldwide. The pride that you walk out on the pitch, you need to deliver. You need to deliver consistency. You cannot just pick and choose when you perform for that club. And they just, players just aren't doing that on a consistent basis. Look, ultimately the manager's always going to pay the price for those results, but the players really need to take a long, hard look at themselves.
I mean, you look at the last 7 games for United as well. They've lost 5 of those last 7. It makes pretty terrible reading when you consider, like, in years gone by, losing 5 games they would have done that in a title-winning season, potentially. But over to you, Rory, as well, looking at Chelsea and how consistent maybe they are performing, especially in the Premier League. Just give us some insight into basically how do you think Chelsea will line up against United, and now is it the time to just go and attack them, really, because they're just so vulnerable in the Premier League?
Yes, I must be honest. I was hoping that this sacking wouldn't happen until we played them. I just think there is an unknown quality to Manchester United at the moment. I'm not making any excuses. Chelsea should win the game. I'm convinced that Chelsea will win the game convincingly. But there is an unknown quality. I think they got a good result in Europe, didn't they? They didn't play particularly well. They certainly didn't start the game well. They finished it quite strongly, but they didn't play very well throughout the game. But they got the vital 3 points. Michael Carrick coming back from Spain with 3 points in his pocket is all that really mattered, particularly when you consider that, judging by the way his team lined up and judging by the way they approached the game, they went there for a draw and they came back with a 2-0 win. So that's fairly impressive. But Chelsea should be going for the jugular against this Manchester United team. Thomas Tuchel is one of the best managers in the world, and that's the least controversial thing you can possibly say about him. I think everybody is pretty much on board with that fact. So the fact that he's going to be going head-to-head with Michael Carrick, who is a novice in the job, who is supported by a backroom staff that has proved already that they're not good enough, I feel like Chelsea should win this game convincingly. The only thing that scares me is it's the unknown. They're a slightly wounded animal. They're unknown. We heard from Dan Jenkins last week about the new manager bounce and what that can mean. So there is a tiny bit of trepidation in me for this game. But don't get me wrong here at all. I think that Chelsea will win and will win very well.
I think just something I want to touch on as well, maybe from the injury point of view, we saw Ben Chilwell go down with a potential season-ending injury, actually. But Ben, can you give us a bit more of an update on him, as well as some other potential injury worries for Chelsea?
Yeah, so the big news obviously was the Ben Chilwell incident. Didn't look great, and Thomas Tuchel admitted that he was, he was seriously worried and concerned about the ramifications of what happened. Now, mechanism of injury suggested, although the camera angle wasn't great, that there may have been ligament involvement. When that knee sort of buckles inwards, that's indicative of an ACL. Now, early reports and scans and images confirm that there was ACL involvement. However, I'm led to believe that they're going to go with non-surgical treatment initially, treat that knee conservatively to see how it responds. Now, there's two ways we can look at this. Firstly, if it's, just a minor, maybe a grade 1 tear, partial tear, and then we look to revisit that maybe early in the new year, or maybe a lot of swelling in and around that joint, and those imaging results have proved inconclusive. So obviously that's big news, and he's almost certainly out for the remainder of the year. Chelsea also lost N'Golo Kante into that midfield role, and that complicates things, especially with Mateo Kovacic also out. It's likely to mean that maybe Loftus-Cheek comes into that midfield alongside Jorginho.
So, just looking at the potential replacements for those players, Rory, let's get your view on this. Who is potentially going to replace Ben Chilwell and Kante, and are they up to scratch when it comes to taking on this United side?
Well, for Ben Chilwell, I genuinely just feel so sorry for him. I really do. I think he had a hard time over the Euros. I don't think he took Gareth Southgate's rotation policy particularly well. He seemed to be out of sorts at the beginning of the season. Marcus Alonso hit the ground running, and then Ben Chilwell has been a revelation. Ben Chilwell has found the best form of his life. He has been revolutionary to the way that Chelsea play. And Reece James on one side and Ben Chilwell on the other is a huge reason as to why Chelsea have been so ruthless and so brilliant in recent weeks. On a sort of a personal and human level, I feel so gutted for him. The fact that Ben Chilwell finds the form of his life and then he's out for the season, it's just so unjust. And I really, really hope that he can keep his chin up and come back as strong as he's left us. In his position, however, I am now going to speak purely for myself. Chelsea fans en masse will probably disagree with me, but I rate Marcus Alonso. I think Marcus Alonso is a very able deputy, and at various points this season, you would have said that Marcus Alonso was actually the first choice. Marcus Alonso scored bundles of goals early this season. He couldn't stop scoring. He was integral to everything good Chelsea were doing. There is a bit of jeopardy around Marcus Alonso. His defensive qualities perhaps aren't as good as Chilwell. He's incredibly slow, lapses in concentration. He can make mistakes, but I love him. He scores big goals. He's a wonderfully natural finisher. Beautiful cross on him. So I think that it's okay in that position. I feel like we have cover just about. The problem will be if anything else happens. If an injury to Marcus Alonso now is really problematic, but fingers crossed that doesn't happen. With regard to Kante, there are lots of options in the middle. None of them are even comparable to the brilliance of N'Golo Kante, but there are certainly options. Kovacic should be nearing fitness soon. Ruben Loftus-Cheek is back in the reckoning. Ross Barkley is featured this season. So what Thomas Tuchel will do, I don't know, but I would guess that Loftus-Cheek will be the answer.
I mean, just get your thoughts as well here, Ben. Do you think some of those replacements for those like Kante and Chilwell are actually up to scratch?
I mean, I'm echo Rory's thoughts with Marcus Alonso. I was a big fan. I thought he deserved his place at the start of the season and retained his place in that starting 11 with some fantastic performances. If you're looking for a chink in the Chelsea armour as a Man United supporter and trying to get a result there this season, those are, whoever Thomas Tuchel brings into that midfield and Marcus Alonso, those are probably the two positions that you may look to target, not because of, the inferior quality overall, but just that maybe that lack of sharpness. They haven't been involved as much and played as many minutes as they may have liked of in recent times. So it could take them a little bit of a while to get up the pace. Also, maybe I'm thinking maybe that centre-back partnership with Thiago Silva, the veteran defender. Can he play 3 games in a week? Will Thomas Tuchel look to manage his game? And therefore, who does he bring in? We know Andres Christensen's done really well. Chabala's done really well. Azpilicueta, he's been out recently, but again, so there could be a few changes in that Chelsea lineup, and that may give Michael Carrick's men a little bit of encouragement ahead of this weekend's game.
Well, another fact as well, they've actually kept 4 clean sheets in the last, 4 games against Chelsea as well. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we've touched on Maguire. He will be suspended for the game as well. So just get your thoughts, Rory, as well. How much Chelsea can actually go at this United defence, given that they're going to be missing Maguire?
For the jugular, because I think they're missing Varane as well. Yeah. So their 2 first choice centre halves are not there. Whether they should be the first choice is up for debate. I would say that Harry Maguire not being there, if anyone's going to appeal that decision, it will be Chelsea, not Manchester United. I would genuinely love him to be playing. I think it's a shame because his head just doesn't seem right, and I think he is actually responsible for Manchester United being so poor. He is largely responsible for it. But Chelsea should be just totally ruthless. The worry is, I think there are various points where Manchester United have world-class players. I think David De Gea is a world-class player playing in world-class form. Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, I'm not an articulate enough man to do justice to the brilliance of Cristiano Ronaldo, so I'll just leave it there. But if those 2 players play well, Manchester United have a chance of winning any game. And there's nothing to suggest that they won't play well. And I've seen Cristiano Ronaldo do it against Chelsea. I was in Moscow when he scored against us in a European Cup final. So I know that he can do it. And I'm intimidated by him. But if you're a Manchester United fan travelling to Stamford Bridge, you've got to be dreaming of a draw as the best case scenario, surely.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, another interesting stat as well is looking at the duels won. So Chelsea, I think they're up in 4th in the league, but United are down in 18th in terms of actual duels won. So yeah, Chelsea are actually going out, competing, winning challenges. Doesn't look like United are doing that. Could that be that Ole's tactics or mindset wasn't about winning those 50-50s, do you think?
I think that if we analyse statistically where it went wrong for Manchester United, I think the deficiencies of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will become apparent at virtually everything. Tactically, the way that he managed the personnel. I think there are so many obvious examples as to where it went so wrong for him. I mean, on some level, he overperformed, I think, Solskjaer, because I don't think I can think of a situation where a man so patently ill-equipped for a job has lasted in a job for such a long time. So considering quite how limited a man he is, considering quite how limited a manager he is, and considering quite how limited his footballing understanding is from that context, I think he actually did fairly well. They had some big results in Europe. They beat Man City a couple of times, 2nd in the league, got to a final. Considering that he was obviously nowhere near good enough to manage that club, I think he did all right.
Wow, nostalgia is a very powerful thing, it looks like. But let's get to the game itself, obviously against Chelsea on Sunday. And the bookies are going for a Chelsea win. And also Dan Jenkins, our betting expert staff writer, is going for a Chelsea to win bet on the 1x2 market. And I think I can go for all of us saying we are all in agreement with that. Rory, just to get your score prediction, how comfortable do you think it will be for Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see a world where Chelsea don't thrash them. I really do. I think, look, if it goes well for Chelsea, and by well, I just mean better than it goes for United. We just have to be better and compete. I think Chelsea win the game 4-0.
Yeah, I'm going for a pretty similar scoreline. I'm going for 3-0 Chelsea again. I feel like it should be pretty straightforward. And Ben, I know, is going for a 2-0 Chelsea win as well. But now we're going to move on to some quick fire games running through the rest of the Premier League card. All right, so the opening game of the game week will see Arsenal take on Newcastle. Now, Ben, I want to get your thoughts here on Eddie Howe and his first game in charge. We did speak about the new manager bounce last week. Fortunately, you couldn't get the win, but how were you satisfied with the performance?
Pleased with United going forward. Obviously showed a lot more adventure, a lot more creativity. Concerns are still at the back and trying to keep a clean sheet. But, you know, if we take us back to the Kevin Keegan era, the entertainers, where we go out and try and score more goals than our opponents, look, then maybe it's maybe not good for the heart, but it's certainly better than the football that we've seen in Tyneside in recent times.
Well, the bet for the game coming from Dan Jenkins is for both teams to score no. So that means that either side will keep a clean sheet. Now, I think there, Ben, you kind of allude to the fact that Newcastle will go out, be a bit more attacking. So you think they're going to get on the score sheet, but obviously then frailty at the back. So you're not completely 100% with this bet, right?
Look, I don't think we really can afford to sit back and just absorb what Arsenal, invite them on. If you look at last weekend, I think we created 20 chances, 4 big chances. We had 31 crosses in the box, the most of any team. It showed a real sort of attacking intent and a change of footballing philosophy under Eddie Howe. I don't think Arsenal are any great shakes. In all honesty, I think they're very fragile at the back. We can get at them. The concern is our record at the Emirates is pretty dire across all competitions. And while I don't think we'll have enough to win or even get the draw, I certainly think we'll get on the score sheet.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that form at the Emirates as well. So I'm actually going to back Arsenal to win to 0 in this one. So I'm going to agree with that bet. But Rory, your thoughts? Do you think both teams can get on the score sheet here at the Emirates?
Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 Arsenal, actually. I think both teams score for sure. Because I think there is a frailty to Arsenal, and I think I'm guilty of this. But maybe the general consensus on this show over the weeks has been just a little bit generous and a little bit giving towards Arsenal. I think we all got caught up in the fact that they went 2 months without defeat, and to be totally frank, maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but what happened at Anfield, it shocked me, and then I was shocked with myself for being shocked. I will never make that mistake again with Arsenal. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I believed in Arteta, and I thought there was something there, and I shall not be fooled again.
But you still think they're going to get the win, right?
I think Arsenal will beat Newcastle. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry. I think Arsenal will beat Newcastle. I think that, but the reason that I kind of flagged that I'm aware of the vulnerabilities in Arsenal, that I think it will be tight. I think Newcastle will score. I think Arsenal will get through this one, but moving forward, I'm going to be far more conservative with my. Like, what was I thinking? I said Arsenal were going to beat Liverpool. I'm never going to fall for that trick again. That was my own fault. Fool me once, shame on you. But whatever that saying is, but I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do that again.
Well, we're about learning or taking our lessons as well on this show. So
Exactly.
Hopefully we've learned a bit more, make more valid predictions in future. All right, let's move on to the next game. We're going to talk about Crystal Palace against Aston Villa. Of course, now for me as a Villa fan, what a way for Stevie G to announce himself as the new manager. 2-0 win, convincing win, I thought, as well, over Brighton. Now here, our best bet is looking at Villa as well, giving them the edge. We're looking at Aston Villa at 0 on the Asian handicap, meaning that basically if you place this bet and the game is a draw, you'll get your money back. And of course, if Villa win, you'll get the win. Your bet will win as well. So I'm fully on board with this. I feel like the momentum that Villa have now after that win against Brighton will be too much for Palace, actually. So I'm going to support this bet. But Ben, over to you. What do you make of that selection?
I've been championing and bashing the Paddles drum for a number of weeks now. I really like what Patrick Vieira's doing. I like some of the players that he's brought in. You have players like Michael Olise, Eze, all coming back to fitness now. Ben Teke is in the form of his life, exceeding his XG for his first time in his career. Wilfred Zaha, the main focal point. Yes, there's question marks over his temperament, but still a great player for Palace. And I really like them. And I'm not buying into this Villa, this Stevie G and coming down and all well and good. Look, I'm disregarding most of the stuff that he does in Scotland. Come and do it and prove it in the Premier League. He may turn out to be a good coach, and Villa may end up having a half decent season. But I'm gonna, I'll make my decisions a little bit further down the line. I'm not looking at that Brighton result as being anything fantastic. I'm not a big fan of Brighton either, despite what the league table and what Graham Potter's allegedly done down there. So I'm firmly going with the home win.
I think that's fair enough. And for you, Rory, which way do you see this one going?
Well, I'm starting to doubt myself now because I know that Ben's really good at this. I've gone the other way. I'm totally on board with Steve Gerrard. I think he's the Messiah, and I've totally seen that one match, seen the result against Brighton. I agree. By the way, I think that there is a little bit of smoke and mirrors around Brighton. I don't think they're as good as the league table will suggest, and I think ultimately they'll end the season somewhere around where they always end the season. But beating them at the moment is quite significant, I think. So I've gone I think Villa, and look, if Villa do get a result at Palace, then I think I might be onto something. So I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to go that Villa will beat Palace 2-1.
All right, well, yeah, there was that one bit of research that Dan did from last week. So the new manager bounce, meaning that teams were more likely to win their first game with a new... All right, so the next game we're going to look at is Liverpool against what, well, basically used to be the feeder club, Southampton. Now, the bookies do see this one as a pretty one-sided affair. But our top bet for this one from Dan Jenkins is for under 3.25 goals in the game, meaning that if there is 3 goals, then you get half of your stake back and half of your bet will be a winner. But Rory, are you expecting a close encounter here at Anfield?
No, not really. I think that Liverpool have been brilliant. If it works for Liverpool, if it goes as it should, Liverpool will be fine. I also don't really rate Southampton particularly highly. I feel like Hasenhüttl gets a massive pass that I don't quite understand. And Liverpool are just so good, aren't they? I'm so impressed by what they're doing. I think when it works for them, they're as good as they've ever been under Klopp. And you think of the result that they had in midweek in Europe as well, and they've rested players. They've had the luxury because they've played 4-1-4, qualified top of the group already. They had the luxury of kind of taking their foot off the gas a little bit in Europe. So I feel like they will beat Southampton fairly convincingly, and I'm going for a 3-0 win.
And for you, Ben, which way do you see this one going? Do you think possibly both teams could score?
Yeah, I think it stayed a little bit tight. I think Liverpool will just do enough to take the 3 points. I'm thinking 2-1. Southampton have improved defensively this season, a lot tighter. The problems tend to be in attack, but I do like Armando Broja. I think he's a great looking prospect. Obviously, the Chelsea loanee, so Rory will be well acquainted with what he can bring to the party. I think they may just nick a goal. Liverpool have a tendency on occasions to switch off, a little bit of fragility at the back. I mean, teams looking to exploit Trent as he bombs forward. So, yeah, look, I'm fancying Southampton just to nick a goal, but of course, Liverpool to take all 3 points.
Yeah, and I'm following Rory as well, going for a 3-0 Liverpool win, which, of course, if you are placing that under 3.25 goals bet, I mean, half of our bet will be a winner. So we're all on board, I think, with that one being a pretty decent bet from Dan. Now we're going to move on to Leeds against Brighton. Now, we've touched on Brighton already. Perhaps smoke and mirrors. Perhaps, it's not so much like the form is maybe just not indicative of how they've actually been playing. But here, the selection from Dan is for Leeds plus half a goal on the Asian handicap. So basically, we're going for, Leeds. If it is a draw, your bet will win as well if you do place this bet. But Rory, let's get your thoughts on Leeds and how much they can do to get a result here against Brighton.
I don't think they'll get one. I think they desperately need one, but I just don't think it's working for them at all, is it? And they look so out of sorts. Every time I've seen them play this year, it just hasn't clicked at all. And I feel like they're going to struggle in this game. I think they could get a draw, which, all things considered, isn't a bad result at all for Leeds United. But I think a draw is the best they can get, and I'm going for a 1-1.
Yeah, and how about for you, Ben?
I think Leeds will nick it. Improved performances of late, just glimpses of it. But I think the return of Rafinha is a big one for Leeds this weekend, especially in the absence of Patrick Bamford. Also, Rodrigo is available as well. So, yeah, I think they'll just nick that one 2-1.
Yeah, and I'm going for a similar to Rory as well. I think they'll get a draw in this one, so I'm going to go for, 1 each. So which would mean the bet would half win when you're placing that on that quarter Asian handicap line. All right, let's move on to our next feature game where we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about two sides that we don't really feature too often on this show more in depth, and that is Norwich against Wolves. So, of course, Norwich are back to winning ways, it seems. 2 wins on the trot. Dean Smith coming in, being instrumental in that victory last week as well. Bringing in Campbell, I thought was a good move, and also Billy Gilmore. So just to get your thoughts, Ben, no real injury news from either side. So how much do you think that will be beneficial to either team?
Yeah, I mean, Wolves have had a pretty settled squad for most of the season. They've got a few long-term absentees. Norwich started particularly badly. They had COVID, a lot of COVID in the camp over the summer, and that carried over. But now, yeah, as you say, we have more or less a clean bill of health. Billy Gilmore appears to be one of the players that could benefit most under the new boss, Dean Smith, and also Todd Cantwell, who was out of favour under Daniel Farker. He was thrown back in, although last week, by his own admission, he isn't quite up to speed. He was replaced after 45 minutes, but hopefully, those minutes in his legs will benefit him, and he'll be coming, those performances will improve as he gets a little bit fit and match sharp.
And for you, Rory, as our resident Chelsea fan, just big up Billy Gilmore for us. I mean, how important do you think he could be for this Norwich team?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no secret to football sometimes, is there? I think that Norwich, under the new stewardship, played their two best players, Billy Gilmore being one of them, and they got a favourable result. I think sometimes football can be quite a simple science, and there it was proved. I think Gilmore now has an opportunity. I think nobody will be more happy with the change in management than Chelsea. I think Chelsea were livid that Billy Gilmore went there. We gave them Billy Gilmore. Lots of people were interested. We chose Norwich, I think, because firstly, he was guaranteed to start because he was going to be the best player at the club. And secondly, I think there were assurances that the style of football was going to be suited to Gilmore. So the fact that he didn't play, I think Chelsea were really annoyed about it and looking to make quite a decisive move in January anyway. But it's a clean slate now, and I anticipate him playing, and I think he's a really good player. And there's now a chance, isn't there? I mean, under Farker, it was over. The Premier League ambitions, the Premier League survival was completely over. Whereas you look at it now and you think there is hope. They're in touching distance of survival. There is a world in which they could survive. I don't think they're going to get anything against Wolves because Wolves have been absolutely magnificent. I didn't see this coming. I think Bruno Lage has done so well, and I don't think we can overstate the importance and significance of beating West Ham United the way they did. They really attacked West Ham. I think they ended up with 15 shots on target, and they were far superior. And I rate West Ham so highly, but Raul Jimenez on the score sheet looking good. That Ruben Neves and Moutinho partnership in the middle is brilliant, and that Hwang looks a really good player. I think Wolves. I mean, we're not talking about relegation for Wolves anymore, which I think was a genuine possibility. I got it so wrong, but I thought it was a possibility. You're talking about whereabouts. Can they qualify for Europe? Is a more realistic question for Wolverhampton Wanderers now.
Well, that's it. I mean, you look at their form; it's pretty impressive stuff, right? They're in the last 7 games, they're actually matched with Man City and Chelsea for points accrued. We've not really talked about them much on this show, but yeah, they are kind of under the radar. But Ben, let's get your quick view on like the injury worries or potential lack of injury worries for Wolves. Has that helped them so far to turn things around?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of stability and availability, it's been great. Bruno Lage has kept them more or less, a core of maybe 8-9 players every week, maybe just alternating the 1 or 2. Anything was a step up from Nuno Espirito Santo and that non-passive, this horrible style of play that fans had to endure last year. I'm still not quite bought in to Wolves. I look at some of those results, and yes, they have flown under the radar a little bit. They've crept up the table, but they've edged out results against Southampton, Newcastle, Leeds, Villa, all teams who are in poor form. They lost against the Crystal Palace. They lost against Brentford. I'll give Rory's due with the West Ham result, but I'll put that more down to maybe an off day for David Moyes and his team. Look, they've got 3 after these 2 so-called easier fixtures. They have games coming up against Chelsea, Manchester City and Liverpool, 3 of that 4 block period. And I think that will be a true barometer of where Wolves have came along. The emergence of Raul Jimenez, post-injury, post-career threatening injury has been big. I mean, he started the season a little bit under the radar. He was creating opportunities. Now I think he scored 2 and assisted 1 in his last 4. So he started to come to the party again. I do like him. But we're still waiting for the likes of what's happened to Adama Traore. There's Trincao, there's Daniel Podence. There's players with Hwang. There's players in that attacking sort of 3 who are all fighting out for places. And I don't think Bruno Lage is 100% locked in on who those 3 best players are for him.
I think something that you've touched on as well is just how kind of close some of the Wolves games have been as well. So from a betting point of view, actually looks like betting under 2.5 goals might be a sensible play here. Of course, Norwich have had struggles scoring goals. Wolves have only scored 12 all season in the 12 games and only conceded 12 as well. So maybe not expect an entertaining game here, but it should be quite a fascinating one in itself. But our prediction for this one from Dan Jenkins is Wolves to win on the full-time result market. So Rory, let's just get your quick view on that. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I agree. I think they'll win 2-0. Fairly professional performance from them.
And how about for you, Ben?
I disagree. I'm going for the Pookie party. I think he'll score and it'll be 1-1.
I think Dean Smith will work some magic for you. Well, potentially, but I'm going on Rory's camp here. I think that Wolves should be too strong for Norwich, so I'm going for an away win. Again, looking at that stat of how the new manager bounce worked, it favoured the first game, but not necessarily the second game. But anyway, let's move on to some more quick-fire games, where we're going to look at Brentford against Everton next. And here our bet is to look at the total goals market and under 2.25 goals. So again, it's looking at that quarter betting. So you'll get half of your bet will be a winner if it's under if it's 2 or fewer. So here, let's get your thoughts, Rory. I mean, just Brentford, they've kind of coming back to maybe what you were expecting or exceeding what you were expecting.
No, Brentford are doing virtually exactly what we anticipated. I think that they are still very significant contenders for relegation, but I think they can get something in this game because I just think Everton are all over the place. Like Rafael Benitez is on a hiding to nothing at that club. I think that his skill in management, I feel, is often overstated. I don't think he's quite as tactically astute as people like to think he is. He obviously is going to struggle with Everton. The fans are already waiting to have a pop at him. And I mean, that Watford result, when they were just torn apart at home, it still lingers very strong in my mind. So I feel like this one, I think they're two very poor teams going head to head, and I feel like they will cancel each other out.
And Benitez as well, by the way, the favourite to be the next manager to leave his post already. So it's something to read into. But Ben, what are your thoughts on this game at Brentford?
I mean, I quite like Brentford, and underlying data, though results haven't been great. They may be unlucky not to leave St James's Park last weekend with 3 points. A couple of goals disallowed. I think they hit the woodwork on a couple of occasions. Everton, dire. Their injury problems. We know they're having problems in attack. They also lose Richarlison this weekend. He's suspended. But I think they may just have enough, and I'm going to go for a share of the spoils, 1-1.
Yeah, and I'm going for a pretty close game as well. I'm actually going for a 1-0 Everton win. I could, kind of echo Rory's sentiment there. I don't think Brentford are going to hold their own too much in this game.
I just feel as if you're both ganging up on us, given where I've been and the predictions for the last couple of weeks. It's all
maybe
about
it was beginner's luck, so we're going against it. But let's see. But let's move on to another game where we'll have plenty to talk about. Burnley against Tottenham. Now here, the advice from our tipster Dan Jenkins is to back Burnley plus a quarter of a goal. So again, if it's a draw, then basically your bet will be a winner as well. So Rory, let's get your thoughts on Tottenham. Maybe do they have much of a chance here? What is going on? Why hasn't Son or Kane started producing as we know they're capable of?
Well, look, I love Dan Jenkins and I rate Dan Jenkins, and I truly hope that Dan Jenkins is correct with what he has said here. But sadly, I disagree. I think that it will come good for Tottenham. And the reason I don't know what's going on with Kane. I really don't. And I think it's gone on so long now that people are genuinely having a discussion. Sometimes with amazing footballers, there's a line, isn't there? There's a line in the sand, and they never regain the strength that they once showed. I don't think that's the case with Kane. I personally don't. But I do think that his form has been so shoddy now for so long that it is a fair conversation. It's a fair talking point. My problem with Tottenham is that I just feel Antonio Conte is the oracle. He's a man who has left me feeling hurt, used, and dirty, but I did adore him because of how good he was. And for me, he's still one of the best managers in the world. And even he will be able to work his magic even on a squad as average as this Tottenham team. And I feel like they will win this weekend. But I really do hope that Dan is correct and that Burnley will pull it out of the bag.
I mean, I'm echoing your prediction as well, Rory. I think that Spurs will just be too strong here. So again, going against Dan. But Ben, your thoughts, your prediction for Burnley Spurs?
Look, it's all three. Yeah, I'm going to Tottenham just to edge this. I mean, typically you would consider, Burnley hard to break down, particularly on the home turf. With Sean Dyche, how he sets his team up in a solid 4-4-2. But when Maxwell Cornet, that opens the Clarets up just a little bit, and they haven't just been as sound at the back as we've seen historically. So I'm thinking 2-1 Tottenham and maybe Heung-min Son to get on the score sheet.
I think it is worth noting as well that Dan doesn't he doesn't recommend this highly, as in terms of like he's not overly confident. But yeah, he is going for Burnley to maybe spring a bit of a surprise. Right, let's move on. The next game we're going to look at Leicester against Watford. Now, what a win it was for Watford last week, of course, finally putting the nail in the coffin for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with that 4-1 win over United. But here they come up against a Leicester side that, for me, should be too strong. And also, I mean, Dan is going for a Leicester win as his best prediction. So, Rory, let's go over to you. What do you make of that bet, and which way do you see it going?
I mean, Watford were sensational, weren't they? They really were sensational. Combine that and combine all of the feel-good factor that they'll have around that performance. Combine it with Ranieri. Combine it with they've got a very exciting-looking team. That front three that they've put together are scary. Joshua King loves scoring goals. Ismail Assar, terrific player. Emmanuel Dennis, the three of them will give anyone trouble. Combine everything I'm saying here about Watford with quite how I feel about Brendan Rodgers, and there's only one winner here for me. I mean, Brendan Rodgers, his team is being booed at the King Power, and I don't think he can cope with that. I feel like he's a man who has a pretty serious and visible ego. And I think the fact that he's been booed by the Leicester fans, who I think he thinks should feel very lucky to have him, I don't think he's sitting comfortably with him. And his team are playing so badly. I heard an interview with Rodgers, and his quote here, I just couldn't work it out. He was asked why his team were conceding so many goals from set pieces. And do you know what his reply was? He went, well, loads of teams concede goals from set pieces. Yeah, what's that got to do with the price of tea in China, mate? Like, why do your team concede loads of goals? It's not relevant. If you're a Leicester fan listening to that, you probably couldn't care less how many goals Manchester United have conceded. You want an answer from your manager about your issues defending set pieces. And I feel like Rodgers is a little bit all over the place. And I don't want to say I told you so about Brendan Rodgers' skill and ceiling, but I did. And I'm loving seeing it come to fruition.
But you are.
Well, I am, yeah. So no, I'm feeling slightly vindicated with the quandary that Brendan Rodgers finds himself in, and I think that Ranieri is going to add to his trouble. I'm going for a Watford 2-1 win.
Excellent stuff. And Ben, how about you? You're on the flip side, right? You're going for Leicester. Do you think they're going to be too strong here?
Yeah, I mean, Watford, tend to have the best performances Vicarage Road, although we've seen a great win at Goodison Park earlier in the season. Look, the FA Cup final win, I think that papered over a lot of cracks at Leicester. They haven't been great throughout the year, so this is a carryover from last season, and this is nothing new defensively. The absence of Johnny Evans was a massive factor in that, and of course the loss of Wesley Fofana. Yuri Tielemans, he's on the sidelines currently as well. He was a player that was coming into some great form, and he's going to be a bit of a miss. It really, to me, I'll be watching the game on Thursday night in the Europa League. That might give a good indication of just how Brendan Rodgers is going to likely to set up his team. I would like to think that he starts with two up front. I think Vardy plays better with a supporting man, with somebody like Kelechi alongside him. We know it's not going to be Daka. 2-1 Leicester. Just.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close one as well, but home advantage will prevail for me. So I'm going to support Dan. I know, Rory, you're on your own a little bit with this one, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, now we're going to move on to the final feature game, a more in-depth analysis of Manchester City against West Ham. Now, of course, we have touched on the fact that West Ham will be in European action. They actually are in action tonight on the day of filming this show. West Ham last week as well lost out to Wolves, but they did beat Liverpool recently. So, Rory, I want to get your view on how different a challenge is Man City compared to Liverpool, and what do West Ham need to do to get a result here?
Pray, I think, will be the first thing. Pray and hope for the best, because Manchester City are just a juggernaut, aren't they? They're so good. They're so efficient. Pep Guardiola is just amazing. You know, I recently watched something. It was an interview that Gary Neville had done with Frank Lampard, and Frank Lampard was asked, who would you play for if you could play for anyone? And he said it would be Guardiola. And he talks about a voice note that Guardiola left saying that that Lampard was doing a good job at Chelsea after a couple of defeats. And he was like, "Oh gosh, it meant so much to me because it came from Guardiola." And I think he has that aura. When you hear somebody like Frank Lampard and the stature that I hold him in, he seems to feel the same about Guardiola. It is a mountain to play against them. And you look at what they did to Paris Saint-Germain in the week. They were so dominant. I know the game could have ended, it could have ended badly for Guardiola, but his team was so dominant. They were so professional. They were so meticulous about everything that they do. I'm just blown away by Guardiola. You know, the way that he's got Foden playing. They've now got that McAtee, who they're calling the Salford Silver, and everything that Guardiola does at the club, he preserves his team. He doesn't like players going out on loan because he wants them training in and around the first team, and it seems to work because everybody seems to pick up the traits off like the best traits off their teammates. You've got Joao Cancelo playing balls that Kevin De Bruyne would be proud of, and you've got it's just an amazing club. So I think the best thing that David Moyes could do is pray, but West Ham have proven to us that they are capable. So there is a chance, and I'm clinging on to that because it would do my team the world of good. So I'm going for a 1-1.
And also looking at West Ham, I mean, they are averaging over 5 shots on target a game, which is the most they've had in nearly 20 years as well in the Premier League. So they are in really good form. But Ben, let's just get your view as well on that City lineup and the potential rotation that we might see. I mean, does it really matter who starts for City? Do they just have that much quality and depth?
Strength and depth, yeah, and have that flexibility and that adaptability within the squad. I mean, it touched upon Cancelo. He can play anywhere across that back line. We've even seen a part of his heat maps as playing, just behind the front two on occasions. False nine, Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus came on against Paris Saint-Germain with a goal and assist. So there's flexibility in and around that squad. Will we see Jack Grealish back? We know he picked up a slight niggle playing for England. He isn't too far away, but will he be thrown in from the start? It remains to be seen. Kevin De Bruyne as well. He tested positive for COVID-19. Now, he could train ahead of the game, but again, after missing 10 plus days away from that competitive environment, it's unlikely to see him start. But in Gundogan, in Bernardo, in Rodri, you've got players who are in great form. Diaz at the back, Kyle Walker. It's fantastic. It's hard to pick out a weakness in that Manchester City team. And for me, it's just all about them and what they do and what they decide to do, as opposed to maybe what West Ham can bring to that party.
I think maybe just on the flip side as well, we did speak maybe in this kind of similar terms back before the Palace game when City lost. So games like that where City haven't actually got 3 points. Do we think there's any kind of way that West Ham can kind of look to those fixtures and maybe what went wrong for City then and apply that in this game on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, of course, Eric Laporte picked up he was dismissed in that game, which left City down to 10 men. But, Palace had acquitted themselves even up to that point really, really well. Look, they do on occasions maybe show a little bit of a soft underbelly. Those games that they go in and feel that they should dominate and win quite easily without any disrespect to Crystal Palace. West Ham have been great this season. Pep will have his players, really ramped up for this one. Of course, they're going to be brimming of confidence after that game against Paris Saint-Germain. But it's another busy, hectic Premier League fixture schedule. And it'll, Pep will cut his cloth accordingly in terms of player availability, freshness, keeping those players sharp. But we know that David Moyes has left Mikel Antonio out of the squad against Rapid Vienna with one eye on this game. And of course, when you've got somebody like him in the form that he's been in this season, he's always going to be a threat.
And also for you, Rory, as well, just looking at that West Ham lineup, I mean, do you think there's a chance they might even look to rotate against City as well? Looking ahead, they've got a midweek game against Brighton and then games after that as well, coming thick and fast. Might they just kind of write this one off? I know fans don't ever want to see that in their team, but could that be the case against City?
I would say. Do you mean it in terms of almost not throwing it sounds harsh, but do you mean in terms of giving themselves a better opportunity in a
later fixture,
in another fixture? No, I don't think that will happen. I'd be very surprised if that were to happen. I also don't think that their fans will allow that. I think West Ham now have created under David Moyes a genuine belief that they can compete, and these are the fixtures that you want to compete in. If you're one of the bigger name players, these are the fixtures that you want to play in. I think it would be a poor statement from West Ham United to rest players against Manchester City. And I don't think that's who they want to be. And I think they've already proved that if they go for it, if they really do, go tooth and nail against the more brilliant teams, they can get something out of the game. So no, I don't think that they will do that. I would be disappointed in them if they did as well.
Well, that's it. I mean,
I'm
they
sure
get
that
a
would be
result
lucrative
against
to them.
Liverpool, so yeah, they're fully capable of getting results against this big team. So yeah, maybe they'll just keep their best 11 available for this game and see how it goes later on. But let's look at the betting odds and the value for this one. So there's not a great deal of value, as Dan's already pointed out in our kind of pre-show talk. There's not a lot of value in backing Man City here, but the value bet from Dan Jenkins is to back no on the both teams to score market. So basically either side to keep a clean sheet in this one. Rory, do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think City should just keep a clean sheet, or even West Ham could potentially?
I don't. Look, I'm going for a 1-1 draw, but I do have a slight concern that it could happen. But I also feel like I may have let my what I want to happen rule what I feel like actually will happen. Part of the motivation for it was I feel like teams, when they've had a particularly tough midweek European fixture, it can have a detrimental impact to your league form. And I was thinking, you're playing against Lionel Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. If there's ever a tricky midweek European fixture, that's it. So with West Ham then to come, maybe that could have an impact. That was my logic. And stranger things have happened. This West Ham team recently beat Liverpool, so I am going to stick with it. But I do also concede that Man City are truly sensational, and it's a long shot.
And Ben, let's have your prediction for City West Ham.
I can't see anything other than a Manchester City win to 0, and I'm going 2-0.
Yeah, I'm following that as well. I'm going exactly on that. So once again, Rory, you're a bit on your own in regards to this prediction and this match. But again, we'll be back next week to see how we all did in terms of our predictions. So guys, thanks a lot for joining us on the big stage. That wraps it up for today's show. Once again, like I say, we'll see you next week to review our performances. And that wraps it up for this edition of The Big Stage. Of course, if you want to post your own predictions, head on over to bettingexpert.com, where we might even feature yours in upcoming shows. And if you do place a bet, as always, we do ask you gamble responsibly. But thanks a lot for watching, and we'll be sure to tune in again very soon.